boy, stop being lazy. Yeah, and I became creative. And I learned how to create it. And now that pride's for me. So come see. Oh, come here.
Welcome back to the Silver Lining. I am your host, Quentin Sterling Tino, and this is my co-host, Pontiac Grand Cam. What's up with you, Cam?
Pretty good, man. It's a little cold outside. Colder than how I like it, man. We from Atlanta, man. We ain't used to this.
Yeah, I sure am. I'm actually a little further south. I'm from Savannah, so it's this is not what I'm cut out for. I mean, now back in the day, now I used to be able to get comfortable in 90-degree weather. I ain't as tough as I used to be now. Now I'm kind of soft now. I'm like a cool 85, and that's it. That's it. So we got some news to discuss. The Falcons finally made up their decision about who to hire for defensive coordinator. They made that decision before the weekend's games were out, so I guess they felt strongly about this candidate. Jeff Ulbrich, former Falcons linebackers coach and interim defensive coordinator, is now the acting and current Falcons defensive coordinator. Cam, how does that make you feel?
You know what? I've heard rumblings in the community. I've heard people being very upset about this. People saying the Falcons never change. People saying Raheem only picks his friends. This isn't a good organization. I've heard all the negatives. Now here comes some positives. I actually like the hire. Now, granted, there were some guys that I would have preferred over Jeff Ulbrich, but nonetheless, that's who we decided to go with. And I like the hire. Jeff is a former player, former linebacker. I think he played his entire career with San Francisco. After that, he decided he wanted to become a coach, bounced around a little bit. He found his way on Dan Quinn's regime from 2015 to 2020. If you guys remember, 2016 is arguably the greatest season in Falcons history, albeit the end result, but it really is. It really is the greatest season we've ever had. He was a part of that. And after we fired Dan Quinn and promoted Raheem to interim coach, we put Jeff Ulbrich as a DC. He got a promotion. And our team reacted to that. Now, granted, it could be also we getting rid of Dan Quinn and then having a new head coach in there, but I believe our team reacted to that. Our defense stepped up in the second half of that season. And after that, he decided to go up to New York. Robert Salah hired him. They never worked together, by the way. He's not a former friend or anything like that. He interviewed and earned the right to be the DC for the Jets. And I want to say they gave up 20 points a game for 2 seasons before he became the head coach. Like he did a pretty solid job. Granted, the Jets were terrible and accumulated a lot of good draft picks. So they had a lot of first round talents. So that also plays a role into things. But for 2 seasons, they gave up less than 20 points a game. That's impressive. And like granted, Robert Salah got fired when the team was 2-3, which is crazy. That's actually an organization run worse than us, believe it or not. But yeah, hey man, the team reacted to him when he became the interim head coach. The players were fucking with him. They like Jeff. I think he's a good coach. I think he can produce something with this team. Now, can he produce chicken salad from chicken shit? We gonna see. Because we don't have all the talent the Jets defense had. But hey, I don't hate the hire. What about you, man? What about you, Sterling Tino? How you feeling?
Brother, I am divided. I'm divided. So this is a hire that I saw, and if I'm being candid, I was disappointed. For several reasons, though. And if I'm being honest, the disappointment is not really about Ulbrich. So I'll give him that much. Jeff Ulbrich, as stated when we first came on, Jeff Ulbrich is a former Falcon coach. He was a linebacker coach from 2015 to 2020. He was also an interim defensive coordinator for the last 11 games of 2020 when Dan Quinn was fired and Raheem took over as interim coach. I gotta admit that for 2020, the last 11 games of that, as far as the coaching staff goes, is basically the same coaching staff. That's a little. It's kind of uninspired a little bit, you
I
know.
agree.
And it also just brings back certain feelings, right? And I'm not saying that these are right or wrong. That's the funny thing about it when you say it's uninspired, right? It's not that the hire is bad or anything. It's just we kind of seen the Falcons do shit like this before. And when they do shit like this, you never sure how it's gonna turn out, right? So one of the earliest instances I can immediately think of was bringing back Dirk Cutter, right? Falcons had a decent offense under him originally, and they went to the NFC Championship in 2012 with a pretty good offensive team. Team couldn't run the ball worth a damn, but you know what? That was a team that featured Matt Ryan as your trigger man, Julio Jones, Roddy White, and Tony Gonzalez. So, at that point, you kind of had to just not fuck it up, right? But Dan Quinn decided things wasn't working out with Steve Sarkisian, and then we end up rehiring Dirk Cutter. And then, we end up firing Dan Quinn and have Raheem as the interim head coach. And then 4 years later, we hiring Raheem as the head coach. And now Raheem back in the building. And after a year, he hired a guy who already been in the building. So that's one of those things that makes it feel disappointing. But if we be and another thing for me as far as the process that I didn't like, right? I understand that you got to be quick on the trigger, right? You can't just wait around and think these guys are gonna wait for you for the job. If somebody want to hire them and they ready to work there at a place that they interview, they're gonna take those jobs and they're gonna be DC for those teams, and you're gonna get stuck with what's left. But for them to not wait at least until this weekend to interview around, like I would prefer for them to leave no stone unturned. I would prefer for them to get a chance to interview with at least 29 other teams. 20, 25 other teams, because four of those teams are 27 other teams, excuse me, because four of those teams are going to be playing next week, right? So maybe you don't want to wait till then. But we made that decision over the weekend without seeing who we could get from teams that have coordinators that's in the playoffs, that's in the divisional round of the playoffs. So I feel like it makes the hire feel hurried. It makes the hire feel rushed, right? So those are the parts about it that's disappointing, right? But when you start going beyond that and you start assessing Jeff Ulbrich. Now, one of the things I said in the last video that what I wanted for the next person we hire as a defensive coordinator, as I want somebody who is a master of their position, right? Now, I don't know if I feel that way about Jeff, but when I think about his time as a linebacker coach with the Falcons, he had Deion Jones, he had Devondre Campbell, he had Foy Olakun, right? No, that's not a bad crop of guys, right? Deion Jones made a Pro Bowl for us. He was a decent player. He was a little undersized, and he's not with the Falcons anymore, but he is still in the league. Devondre Campbell, he had his ups and downs. He made some plays with us, but he was a guy who was already a raw dough of clay. Like if you go back, that's the other thing when we talk about developing and is he a master of his craft, right? I can't just look at what happened after, right? So some people are going to look at the fact that Devondre Campbell went to Green Bay, became an All-Pro, and say, "Oh, see, Jeff Ulbrich didn't know what he was doing, right?" Or whatever, didn't know who they were doing, right? But one, that was the only season Devondre had like that, and subsequently he fell off a cliff. A lot of San Francisco 49ers fans hated Devondre Campbell before he quit on that team. They hated him as a player. So they didn't want. They thought he sucked anyway. He was also with the Cardinals before he was with Green Bay. They didn't want him. You know what I'm saying? So the only two places where he seemed to be wanted at all at any point was in Green Bay and in Atlanta, right? And the other thing too is you got to look at where they were when they came into your building. Devondre came in as a guy who had raw instincts, but great athleticism. He was a 6'4" linebacker that weighed 230, 200, I mean 235, 240 pounds, and could cover tight ends. Like sometimes when he was at Minnesota, they just say, "Hey, go cover the tight end, go cover the fastest guy." They don't even give him a real defensive game plan. They just say, "Hey, this is your assignment." And he go out there and do it. And that's kind of how he got on the radar in the first place. And even as a rookie, you got to remember, that's another thing too. He started as a rookie. I believe he was a third or fourth round. I can't remember which round, but him and Deion Jones started as rookies. And on that Super Bowl team, they were one of the better units. You know what I'm saying? So that is a bit of a feather in Olbricht's cap, right? Another thing I said I wanted was that I would prefer a guy with a proven track record, right? Now, when we talk about proven track records, Olbricht was the defensive coordinator. And I'm sorry, I think I gave you some scratched up information. So Olbricht was the defensive coordinator in 2021 as well. So he was defensive coordinator from 2021 to this past year when he became interim coach for the last 12 games of the year, right? In his first year, they gave up about 30 points a game. That is terrible, right? But that was a defense that, well, let's be real, that the whole team was dysfunctional. The Jets, like you said, one of the worst run franchises in the NFL. Like seriously, the Jets, and that was kind of the thing that made judging anybody this past year at the Jets hard. Like just the amount of dysfunction they had around that franchise, like all off season, right? Like there's the Hassan Reddick bullshit. So one, they let Bryce Huff walk in free agency, so they lose their best edge rusher. They trade for an edge rusher from the team that signed their old edge rusher, right? They don't have a contract in place when they make the trade. So then he sits out for the first 7 games, plays the last 10 games, only give you 1 sack. That's Hassan Reddick, right? Then you got the bullshit with Salah and Aaron Rodgers. Them two just seem to not be on the same page sometimes. I don't know what the fuck was going on with that. Excuse my language. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, I'm trying to clean it up a little bit. I listen to the content too, and I'll be like, yeah, I get excited. But whatever. So yeah, I don't know what was up with them. You fired a coach after 5 games, after a 2-3 start. That's bananas. Right? Like 5 games. Like how many teams weren't in the playoffs race in 5 games and then they were? You know what I'm saying? So like how many teams this year turned they year around? Like didn't the Ravens start out some shit like that? Didn't the Ravens start out with one of their early losses being to the Raiders?
They did, yes.
Okay. Imagine them firing John Harbaugh that early. Don't get me wrong now. He don't got the leash Harbaugh have. I ain't saying that. But I'm just saying, they did all of that, and then Olbricht had to take over the shit show, and he had to steer the drowning ship. So that makes 2024 hard to evaluate. But when you look at the improvements, because in 2022, that's the year they drafted Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson II, that went to a top-tier defense. And it was a top-tier pass defense. And it was so from 2022 until last year. Now, last year, they gave up a few more points. But like I said, that's a different dysfunctional franchise, and that's also a team that lost the pass rusher and didn't gain one. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot going on. And look, another thing too, I know a lot of people, they see, that, okay, Robert Salah, defensive head coach, defensive wizard for another good team, and he's also a name that they know. Clearly, he's the guy who's in charge of the defense, right? Jeff Olbricht, just the guy who's siphoning off the glory, right? But like you said, the key part is that Jeff Olbricht is not one of Salah's guys that he just brought along, and Salah calling the defense for real, and he just got him doing anything. Jeff Olbricht interviewed for the role. He went through the process like everybody else, like we do. like how I do, how you do, the viewer. I'm pointing at you if you
Mhm.
only listening. You know, he went through the interview process like the rest of us with a complete stranger, and the guys, he loved him, and he decided that's who he was gonna hitch his wagon to. And for the most part, it was a good decision. You know, so and he was the play caller, and that was his, that was really his only other experience as a defensive coordinator. So, maybe Salah was okay with that because he was like, hey, I'm a defensive guy, I've been a defensive coordinator, I want to be more hands-on, so maybe I'll hire a guy with a little less experience. But also maybe, the interview process went real well, and that was why. That was why, Ulbrich killed it in an interview. He showed it out on the field as a coach, as a coordinator, and that was that, right? And I think that's the thing about evaluating this, right? You got a guy who had been in the building before. Actually, just to backtrack, one of the things I talked about as far as mastering his positions, I forgot to mention about Foy Olakun. The reason why I really wanted to bring up Foy is because he became a really good linebacker with us and a good linebacker for Jacksonville. And this is a guy who went to Harvard, Yale. He played at Yale. Excuse me, think about Ryan Fitzpatrick. This guy who played at Yale as a safety, and so he's coming in under the direct tutelage of Jeff Ulbrich,
Mhm.
and he not only handles the increase in talent that he playing against, but also the position change and handles them both really well. And he would have been an undersized linebacker anyway. So it's not like, there's a guy who, yeah, he got the perfect body for a linebacker. So we just moved him to linebacker. They're just like, no, he ain't fast enough to be a safety. So we're gonna move him to linebacker and see what happens. And my point is Jeff got some he got some crumbs there for us to work with. And honestly, um while I was disappointed, and I will announce that, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna empathize with you if you feel that way. I do have to admit, if I looked at the blind resume and took the name Jeff Ulbrich off, or I kept the name Jeff Ulbrich and just remove his Falcons tenure. He never was a Falcon. He did everything he did, but he never did it for the Falcons. I would be happy with the hire. If
It's
somebody
just
would have told me if somebody would have said if everything happened the same way, but the defensive coordinator for the Jets was just some other dude, and they said,
Mhm.
"Hey, the Falcons just hired the Jets defensive coordinator," I'd have been like, "Fucking great!"
Yeah, they have a good defense.
I'm like, "Good, all right, this franchise finally wants to win."
Exactly. That's the only thing good on the Jets is that their defense was solid. Hey, another side note that you brought up about Foy. People forget Foy Olukon was the leading tackler on our team in 2022 before he went to Jacksonville. He was the best
Yeah,
player. He was one of the best players on our defense. He
yeah.
was that guy, yes. And he was developed by Jeff. So yeah, I agree with what you said. Like if you took his name off the Falcons based off his resume, you would be impressed. So yeah, but at the same time, it feels like the Falcons are on the same carousel. And it feels like we're making the same mistakes over again,
Over and over.
over and over again. But I don't necessarily believe that. I know we're rehiring somebody who's already in the building, but this does not feel like a dirt cutter rehire. It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like we actually got a guy who has developed a bit more into what you've been looking for, a defensive mastermind. He's not quite there yet. He's not the guy we would have wanted who has that defensive pedigree that we're exactly looking for. But based off his resume, he's shown he has the aptitude and the capability of improving players, cultivating talent. That's something you need. Now, it's not only just X's and O's, it's also improving the people you have around you. And it
Yeah.
shows that he has the ability to do that.
No, man. Look, I think you're spitting, man. I think I'm with you. Look, um, I mean, I look, I it's so much of it is just the fact that you felt like you've done it before. But what I will say that is different now when you talk about the difference between the Dirk Cutter rehire and the Jeff Ulbrich rehire is that at the time we rehired Dirk Cutter, he wasn't really on an upward trajectory, right? Like, he had been an offensive coordinator with us. He had been a head coach. His offense though wasn't good. It wasn't like his offense was good, but his team was lousy. His offense wasn't great. And then he got fired.
Yeah.
And then we ended up bringing him back. With Jeff Ulbrich, the team sucked, franchise sucked, but his unit played better. And his unit when he was a linebacker coach played well. His unit when he was a Jets defensive coordinator played well. So he's at least ascending. He's at least going up. He's showing improvement in his craft as a whole. Right?
Exactly. That's the point. You nail on the hammer, baby, right there. Upward trajectory. He's improving, man. He's shown. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, man.
Right. Now, ultimately, though, I think you and I can both agree that how it's going to look is going to come down to what the Falcons do with personnel. Right? Mm-hmm. That's just going to be the bare bones of it. So I've always been not always, but I mean, no, I think I've always been of the mindset that you really need your best athletes to be on defense. Defense is typically dictated by offense, right? And so you need guys that can do things to make up for the fact that the offense know what the play is, where the ball going, and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's hard to be a slow corner. You know what I'm saying? You could be a slower receiver. You know where the ball going. You know how to get open for a split second because the ball gonna be there because you stay after practice with the quarterback, then run 200 reps. You know what I'm saying? Corner can't do that. Corner got to see you and move with you. Linebacker got to see ball, go get ball. Defense really that simple. So it's going to come down to what the Falcons do with the defense now. Ultimately, we've been banging the drum a little bit, trying to think that maybe corner is the position they need to be prioritizing. I don't know. But I think the reason I'm leaning for that is because I think we can manufacture some pass rush a little bit. Now that's silly of me to say that we finished last in the league in sacks, right? Mm-hmm. But we saw and after the bye that the team was incapable of finding ways to get pressure. But we were not capable of covering when we did that, right? So I think this is a team that we say, all right, what does team need for Jeff Ulbrich to be successful, right? I think we need a solid number 2 corner. And I think with the contract we have Terrell on, if we did use a first rounder on a corner and he was a lockdown guy, that then your cornerback room is set. I don't know how well necessarily Jeff Ulbrich helps develop pass rushers, but I will note, Jeff Ulbrich also did coach at UCLA, and he coached Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. And for those of you unfamiliar, those guys went on to be stalwarts for the Vikings defense for a bunch of years under Mike Zimmer.
2 Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
Pro Bowl players.
Pro Bowl players. And when he coached them, Eric Kendricks was an off-ball linebacker, but Anthony Barr was leading the nation in sacks. Mm-hmm. That was the guy he was coaching. And then, you forget about that because Anthony Barr went to the Vikings and became an off-ball linebacker as well. But yeah, that's how Ulbrich was using them to great success. So I think it's just a little bit easier to manufacture pass rush than it is to manufacture coverage, right? Like if you in man coverage, either you can cover, or you can't. But we need a corner, a number 2 corner, and this is my estimation. You need a number 2 corner. We need a pass rusher. I think best available of either of those 2 is fine for me, right? So if we mess around and 15 come up and we like the pass rushers there more than we like the corner there, I'm fine with either. right? But need to see one of those happen. I think it's time to look at another linebacker too. I think Caden Ellis has shown his worth as a pass rusher. We're gonna want to look into extending him. He's about to be in his last year as a Falcon. And but I think for us to truly be able to unleash him and unleash him all the time, we got to have another linebacker that can do what we thought Troy Anderson was going to be able to do. And maybe that's a guy who's supposed to be impacted by the Jeff Ulbrich hire. Maybe Ulbrich get in the building, help Anderson out, and Troy Anderson fuck around and he be the linebacker that we hoped he could be because he got the coaching
Hey,
guy
man.
he needed.
Hey, man. Hey, you said it yourself. We need a guy who can turn chicken shit into chicken salad. And Jeff is looking like a guy. He's had talent, but he's looking like a guy who knows how to improve. And that's what you want the most. A guy who can improve the players around him.
Yeah, I think so. I think the last thing we need is a strong safety. We need a safety that is a little bit more run defense oriented. I think somebody who can come down and if we having a trouble, like the game against the Panthers is a prime example where a lot of the success that the Panthers had was because we just couldn't stop them running the ball, and we couldn't get pressure on Bryce. And I'm like, damn, that would have been a nice game to have a safety that can get in the box, and then we actually have another corner that can cover. So, now Bryce got we're not getting beaten in the pass game by Xavier Legette or Adam Thielen, or I forget the other guy's name, the other receiver they had named. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it. And I think those are going to be things that the Falcons need to prioritize if they want Jeff Ulbrich to be successful. What you think, Cam, man? What you think the Falcons need to do to help Jeff Ulbrich not make the Falcons look like we doing the same stupid shit we've been doing?
Hey, man, it's going to be tough. And this is really more like a Terry question, considering we have four picks in this upcoming draft. And we have a lot of money tied up in a Kirk, so we haven't made that decision on what we're going to do with him just yet. So we're gonna have to see some things transpire in the offseason to really make an educated guess. But I'm leaning to what you said. We got 4 picks. The first one, I'm torn because I'm in the belief that we may have the quarterback of the future, get a lineman. But our line is kind of solid right now. It's not bad. It's not great. It's good, but not great. So I'm leaning towards what you're saying. The first pick in our draft needs to be a DB. It needs to be a corner. That's what we need. And then we need another linebacker. And then you can never have too many guys in the trenches. Maybe another defensive lineman. And then from there, I guess we can just fill out with whatever the 4 picks we got. But I agree. I couldn't have said it better myself, man. We really need to get some more talent on our defensive side of the ball because it's evident that we have invested on the offensive side. Now, and our offense is it's solid. We can always improve, but we have a solid core of guys that, hell, if we had some more defensive stops, so we had better quarterback play, we'd be in the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. Offensively, I'm feeling confident in our team. Defensively, we got to invest.
Yeah.
We got to invest. We got 4 picks in the draft. Damn near all 4 of them need to be on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Maybe use one.
And worse, it almost feels like all 4 of them need to hit.
Maybe use one on like another offensive lineman just in case somebody gets hurt. But really, like 4 of them need to be on. Like at least 3 out of the 4 picks need to be on the defensive side of the ball.
Bro, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. That's pretty much all I got to say on that one, brother. Anything you want to add to this one?
Hey, man, it's short and sweet, baby. Under 30 minutes, we're going to get out of here. Let y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday. Watch this national championship game. I don't know who you got. I'm pulling for Notre Dame. I'm not an Ohio State guy. Never have been. But, hey, we'll see how it plays out.
Well, man, I hate them both, so I hope the game
I honestly hate them both,
and then they say, all right, well, no champion this year.
It's the lesser of 2 evils for me.
That's right. I don't even be knowing who I want. I'm like, nah, yeah, see, Notre Dame suck. Get in a real conference, like a real college football team.
Hey,
but,
I was saying
but I'll say this much, though. We have a playoff this year. So I will say this now, as much hating as I am, as I'm doing, whoever wins tonight, it is well deserved, at least to some degree. Like, Ohio State did have to go through the undefeated #1 Oregon Ducks this year. Notre Dame did beat Georgia. I mean, granted with a backup quarterback, but they beat Penn State too. So we'll just see how that thing goes. All right. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us, man. We really love that. We love it when you watch the content. We hope that we added some value to this move for you and that you don't want to hang yourself. Get off the chair. Get off the chair. Get that noose from around your neck. All right. You don't got to kill yourself. All right. It's okay. It's okay. All right, guys. We about to get up out of here, man. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Hit the little bell when you want to know some real niggas uploading. Peace.